Yo, what's good YouTube? It's your boy Vade, aka Pro Benchwarmer, and welcome to another episode of Boxed Benchwarmers, the series where we discuss every incomplete archetype within Duel Links, their relative history within our meta, and what cards do they need to become competitive. Now, if you enjoy these videos, please hit that like button and press subscribe for more weekly content. I've been gone for the last 2 weeks because school was so hectic within finals week, but I am back and I'm ready to give you guys some more videos. Now, I want to discuss Gem Knights in this video because recently in the TCG, Gem Knights took a huge hit to their consistency by having Master Diamond limited to 1. Gem Knights in the TCG was focused on an FTK or OTK playstyle, getting a lot of burn damage and having your opponent play literally no Yu-Gi-Oh! Now in Duel Links, we don't have those type of tools to make an FTK deck out of Gem Knights, simply because the format. We have 20 cards in our deck and also 4 cards when we draw, which makes fusion summoning actually pretty unfortunate for us because we lose 3 cards in our hand to get 1 monster onto the field and have 1 card in hand to protect yourself. So it's actually not good at all to have a fusion deck in Duel Links. It's all about resource management, like you guys in the TCG would know and us in Duel Links would know. The better way to handle your resources, especially if handling your resources within your archetype makes it make your deck perform better, the better you can do that, the better your deck will be within our meta. Now, Gem Knights don't have those cards at all in our meta to actually be competitive. However, when Primal Burst did come out, there were a couple Gem Knight decks that hit King of Games. It was utilizing either dual standby, having more cards in your hand, and using fusion recycling plants to recycle the polymerization back to the hand, and Gem Knight Lazuli to get your normal monsters back from the graveyard so you can continue making fusion plays. Because Gem Knight fusion monsters are pretty kinda generic. All of them, let me pull up one so you can understand what I'm talking about. All of them have this summoning condition where it's 1 Gem Knight monster and then something else that's very generic. You can splash in any other card as long as it's for this one in case, so you understand, a pyro type monster, so that you can throw in Gem Knight monster and maybe Volcanic Shell to fuse into Gem Knight Citrine. It doesn't have specific cards, so you're not sitting around waiting for the specific cards in your hand to fusion summon. And I think that that's really good, especially since all the Gem Knight monsters are Gem Knight cards in their name, and they have different attributes as their attribute or type. I believe that's their type. They have different types and stuff, so you can actually go into a lot of Gem Knights with just 2 normal Gem Knight monsters in your hand. I think that's really good and makes the deck really interesting. However, we don't have the resources to utilize having a full board after having 4 cards in your hand. Now, what cards do Gem Knights need to become competitive? I believe all have to focus around that, utilizing their resources. And the first card would be Gem Knight Fusion. Gem Knight Fusion states you fusion summon 1 Gem Knight Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters in your hand or your side of the field as fusion materials. Now with the resource management, it says if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish 1 Gem Knight monster from your graveyard and add this card back to your hand. Now you don't need the field spell to get your polymerization back because Gem Knight Fusion does that within itself, banishing a card that's in your graveyard that probably doesn't have any use anymore to get this card back to your hand so you can continue your fusion summon plays. I think that's hugely important because with cards that we have Release from Stone, you can actually get those banished monsters back to the field. And also in our recent box, we got Different Dimension Reincarnation, which lets you special summon a banished monster back to your field, which is actually huge for Gem Knights, because if you're banishing your monsters of Gem Knight Fusion, now you just fusion summon a monster onto the field, got this card back to your hand, and now you can use the banished monster that you just the card you just banished back to the field. I think that's hugely important into building a board, because now you are not left with just a fusion monster and a 1 back row. You are left with 2 monsters on the field and a back row. I think that's really important, especially going into next turn. You can continue your fusion summon plays. The next card I think that this deck actually needs is here, Gem Armadillo. Every deck should have a Stratos. There's a deck that's always, there's a saying that's always stuck in my head. Every deck should have a Stratos, and this deck has Gem Armadillo, which states when this card is normal summon, add 1 Gem Knight monster from your deck to your hand. It's a 1700 beater, so normal summoning it isn't too bad. It's not like you're losing on that. You get a good body on the field, but you get to search any Gem Knight monster from your deck to your hand. That is huge, because now you can go into your fusion plays and get if you have Gem Knight Fusion in your hand, that card is now live because you have cards to fusion summon, because you have the monsters in your hand, and then you can banish that monster to get the Gem Knight. It's just so good, because now you have this card on the field plus a monster on the field at the end of fusion summoning, and also with the next card it just builds a board. Now you build a board and you can now make plays. The next card that I'm talking about is here's Gem Knight Obsidian. Gem Knight Obsidian states, if this card is sent from your hand to the graveyard, you can target 1 level 4 or lower normal monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. If you can't tell by the cards that I have here in Duel Links, Gem Knights have a lot of normal monsters. Oh, this is not a normal monster, but Gem Knights have normal monsters and also these Gem Knight monsters that are in the deck that they're not that good on their own because they're normal monsters. They don't really have an effect, and the Gem Knights are like, you feel me? Like they take a while just to get their effects. But Gem Knight Obsidian means that now you can have 3 monsters on your field with these 3 cards that I just stated. If you go Gem Armadillo, grab Obsidian, Gem Knight Fusion to get Obsidian in the graveyard, and another Gem Knight monster in the graveyard to get a fusion monster onto the field, Gem Knight Obsidian hits the graveyard and now normal summon, special summons that normal monster back to the field. That's 3 monsters on the field, all off of having a pretty good hand. And now you can still get Gem Knight Fusion back to your hand, and you still have a back row. That's really good. That makes Gem Knights actually playable. I think that these cards are necessary for Gem Knights going further. They need some way of building a board and handling their resources in order to keep going. Now, another card I want to talk about that's a little like just my own opinion, a pretty good card for the deck. It's just like one of those like fall back cards. I think that this deck would be good running like probably maybe 3 Gem Knight Fusions or maybe just 2 and like 2 polys, because I want to talk about this card right here, First of the Dragons. Now I'm laughing only because like I'm simultaneously thinking that this card is too busted and saying that this card is kind of manageable in my head. So I'm like flip-flopping. It says that it only needs 2 normal monsters, dude. It's a dragon fusion. It only needs 2 normal monsters. And the reason I wanted to toss this in this video is because for those hands where you open up with a bunch of normal monsters and maybe a poly, where do you go from there? Like, sure, you can go into your Gem Knights, but if you can't like build a board with that, like if you're just gonna go into your Gem Knight and then like 1 card in the back row, or Gem Knight and then normal summon a normal monster and then set 1 in the back row and pray that your opponent can't like blow you out of the water with that field, they're probably gonna blow you out of the water with that field. Like, it's not impressive. First of the Dragon states that you can only control 1 First of the Dragons, and this card cannot be destroyed by battle except by battle with a normal monster, and it's unaffected by monster effects, which I think that is really good because it gives this deck a pseudo boss monster within this, and it lets those normal monsters be usable. If you happen to brick, you can go into First of the Dragons and just sit on it because your opponent can't destroy it except with a battle with a normal monster. Now, of course, your opponent can just econ take this and slap you in the face, but you know, I'm just saying, it's a boss monster that this deck can manage with. This is what I think that Gem Knights should go for. Gem Knights should have these Gem Armadillo. Let me show you these cards again. Gem Knight Obsidian, Gem Armadillo, and Gem Knight Fusion. This would make the resource part of fusion decks actually like it come to fruition, and I'm hyped for that. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, what do you think Gem Knights need, and do Gem Knights even have some type of viability even with these cards? I want to hear your guys' thoughts. But with that being said, I'm Pro Benchwarmer, and it's a wrap.